So what happens when we die? What's on the other side of that final breath? It's a question that's fascinated us and yeah, maybe terrified us for as long as we've been around. In this explainer, we're going to take a journey from some deeply held beliefs all the way to the stark, scientific facts of what it really means to die. It really boils down to this, doesn't it? Is this it? Is this all we get? Or is there something more waiting for us? It's the ultimate mystery. So let's dive in and explore what we think we know and what we simply have to take on faith. All right, here's our game plan. We'll start with what people around the world believe happens next. Then we'll get into the science, what clinically happens when the body shuts down. From there, we'll look at the decomposition process. And finally, we'll circle right back to those big philosophical questions about what, if anything, comes next.
You'd think that in our modern, super scientific world, belief in an afterlife might have faded away. But that's not the case at all. It seems like it's a fundamental part of being human to hope or to truly believe that some part of us keeps going.
I mean, just look at the UK. A poll back in 2014 found that almost 60% of people there believe some part of us survives death. That's a pretty solid majority. So what do they think they're heading towards? Well, over in the United States, the belief is even more specific. A 2015 survey showed a whopping 72% of Americans believe in heaven. But here's what's really interesting. Look at the number for hell. Only 54%. It seems like a lot more people are banking on the reward than the punishment. And these concepts are probably super familiar to you, right? Heaven is usually thought of as this amazing paradise, your eternal reward for living a good life. And hell, well, it's the polar opposite, a place of eternal punishment for living a bad one. This idea of cosmic justice is a really powerful thread woven through human history. Okay, let's put a pin in belief for a second and get, well, clinical. What is actually physically happening to our bodies in those last moments? From a medical standpoint, death isn't just one single moment. It's actually a process, and it has clearly defined stages. So it all starts with cardiac death. Pretty straightforward. The heart just stops beating. The blood flow stops. But what's absolutely fascinating is that some people who've been brought back from this point talk about having near-death experiences, feeling aware of everything or seeing that classic bright light. That brings us to what's called clinical death. You can think of this as a very, very important grace period. For about 4 to 6 minutes after the heart stops, you can still be brought back. The clock is definitely ticking, but the game isn't totally over. Not yet. But once that 4 to 6 minute window slams shut, you hit biological death. The brain has been starved of oxygen for too long, and its activity stops, permanently. At this point, the process is irreversible. It's the final whistle. Scientifically speaking, game over. But you see, the end of life for us is actually the beginning of a whole new process for the body. Once the lights go out for good, a new, totally natural, and let's be honest, kind of undignified process kicks off. The body begins its return to the earth. Right after death, every single muscle in the body relaxes. That includes the sphincters, which, well, it means the body empties itself. Air trapped in the lungs can escape, which can create these sounds like groans or moans that can be, pretty startling. And in some really rare, wild cases, the gases in a deceased pregnant woman's body can actually expel the fetus. It's known as a coffin birth. From there, the timeline of decay is pretty predictable. Within a few hours, rigor mortis sets in, making the body stiff. Then, bacteria get to work in a process called putrefaction. Over the next month or so, soft tissues liquefy, and if the body's buried, it could take anywhere from 8 to 12 years to become just a skeleton. And that process of putrefaction, it creates a smell that is impossible to forget. One forensic expert described it this way, saying it's like rotten eggs, feces, and a used toilet left out for a month times 1,000. It is unholy. Okay, so this brings us to a huge myth that you've probably heard, that your hair and nails keep growing after you die. Yeah, that's not actually true. What's really happening is that the skin around them starts to dehydrate and pull back, which just creates the illusion that they're growing longer. All right, after confronting that pretty stark physical reality, we have to circle back to our original question. After the body is stopped and it's returned to the earth, is that really it? Is that the end of the story? Or does something else, something of us, linger on? Not everyone who's revived reports seeing a tunnel of light. For some people, the experience is the complete opposite. As one person put it after they were brought back, it was just black emptiness. No thoughts, no consciousness, nothing. Just
a total absence of everything?
This brings us to a huge idea in philosophy called mind-body dualism. The philosopher René Descartes was a big proponent of this. It's the theory that your mind, your soul, your consciousness, whatever you want to call it, is not a physical thing. It's a non-physical substance that's totally separate from your physical body. And if that's true, well, then maybe it can exist after the body gives out. Then you have other ideas that go beyond just a single afterlife and into these endless cycles. The philosopher Nietzsche had this idea called eternal recurrence, the theory that you are destined to live this exact same life, with every single joy and every single sorrow, over and over and over again forever. It's kind of similar, but also very different from the Buddhist concept of samsara, which is a cycle of reincarnation into new lives that you can only break free from by reaching enlightenment. So, where does all this leave us? We've gone from faith in paradise to the science of putrefaction, and all the way back to the philosophy of consciousness. We're left staring at this huge universe of possibilities, and we can't definitively prove a single one. So in the end, these are kind of the main options on the table, right? Are we headed for an eternal reward or punishment? Are we going to live this exact same life again on a loop forever? Are we going to be reborn into a brand new existence? Or is that it? Our bodies just become part of the earth, and our consciousness was just a temporary flame that's now gone out?
And so we're left with the ultimate personal question: paradise, recurrence, or just a return to the earth? Science can tell us in grim detail what happens to our bodies, but what happens to us? That remains a mystery. And maybe the only thing we know for sure is that how we answer that question profoundly shapes how we choose to live our lives, right here,